Hey guys, in this session we're going to be looking at the MCAT paper from 2015. So this was day one's paper, the one on Tuesday. And okay, so let's get going. Right, so with the first question, they've asked you guys to expand this equation. So, well, x times 4x, we're going to get 4x squared. X times minus 5 is going to be minus 5x. 2 times 4x is 8x, and then 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Now, it's really important that you guys actually simplify this question, because in the answer schedule, they actually want you guys to actually simplify this. Otherwise, looks like you might not actually get the full grade for this. So simplifying this, we're going to get 4x squared plus 3x minus 10. So that was a nice and easy achieved question to start the paper with. Okay, let's go to the second question. So with 1b, we've been asked to find the x coordinates of the points where the graph, this particular graph, cuts the x-axis. Now we know if we want the graph to be cutting the x-axis, we needed to put y is equal to 0 and then solve the equation. So what we can say is 0 equals to x multiplied by x plus 3. Now, this is just solving quadratic equations, so which means you've either got the x in the blue box is equal to 0, or the x plus 3 in the green box is equal to 0. So with the first one, it's nice and simple, because we can straight away put x is equal to 0, or in the green box, we have x plus 3, and that equals to 0. So when we rearrange this, we're going to get x is equal to minus 3. So our two answers for this question is the x coordinates for the points. You're going to have the first coordinate is 0 and the second coordinate is minus 3. And this is an achieved question. Okay, the next question. So in this question, you've got Rani hired a bike for a ride, cost $8 for 2 hours and then $3 for every additional hour. Her ride cost $23. How long did Rani hire the bike? So first off, you've got to actually set up an equation for this. So I'm looking at, it costs $8 for the 2 hours. So we've got $8 for 2 hours and then $3 for every additional hour. So we can write this as $8 plus $3 for every hour after 2. So the way you write it is that, I mean, if you think about it, if she hires, okay, wait, what should we do is let's actually make a table. Let's make a quick table here. All right, so you can have a look. So what they say is, like, let's put this as time, and then let's put this as cost. All right, so here we have, so we don't really know how much she pays for the first hour, but what we do know is after 2 hours it's $8. After 3 hours it's well, she's got to pay $8 plus $3 for the 1 hour, so that's going to be $11 altogether. And then after 4 hours it'll be 8 plus 3 times 2, which is 14. Now, if you're good with your tables, you can probably try and create a pattern for this. Look at these patterns and actually create an equation. So in other words, if this was t, what is this going to be here? So you can kind of see that the pattern is that you can write this as $8 plus 3 times whatever this t is. Like if you look at it, it's 4 here and 2 here, it's 3 here and it's 1 here. So if this is t, this would be t minus 2. So it's because we've got to think about that extra 2 hours, well, the first 2 hours where she doesn't actually pay on the hour, which means going back to this equation, I can write it as $8 plus 3. Now instead of t, I'm just going to use hour, h minus 2. So this is her equation, like what it's going to cost her. Now they're saying that her ride costs $23, so this is $23. So how long did Rani hire the bike for? Now we can write this as 8 plus 3 bracket h minus 2 equals 23. And then I'm going to expand that bracket inside, which is going to make it 3h minus 6 equals 23. So 8 minus 6 is 2. So we have 2 plus 3h equals 23. And then 3h equals 23 minus 2. 3h equals 21, which means we can write h is equal to 21 divided by 3. So therefore, the number of hours she hired the bike for was actually 7 hours. So this was a merit question. Well, this is a merit question. Yeah, and that's it for this question. Go to the next one now. Okay, so with this question, I'm looking at the numerator and I can see straight away there are two like terms. We've got ab squared and ab squared. So we've got two lots of it. So we got 3ab squared plus ab squared, which is going to equal 4ab squared minus 4a cubed b, and the whole thing divided by 4ab squared. Now, it's very common to see people do something like this, where you see someone, they see 4ab squared at the numerator here, and they see in the denominator, so they almost do something like this. So some people, I'm expecting, would have done this. They would have done, sorry, let me just write this up. They would have seen this equation and straight away go, oh, I see a 4ab squared and I see a 4ab squared. Cancel it out and then write this as your final answer as minus 4a cubed b. Now, if you did this, sorry to say this, you're absolutely wrong there. What you need to do in this question is you actually need to factorize. All right, you got to factorize the numerator first, and then you can actually start canceling it out. So if I look at the first, at the numerator, the common factor that I have in each one of them is I have 1, 4, 1a, and 1b. So I could take out 1, 4, 1a, and 1b, and I could write this up with the remaining terms. Now, if I look at the this number here, 4 is already out, a is out, 1b is out. So that's just going to be b. Minus, I look at the second term, 4 is out, 1a is out, so it's going to be a squared, and the b is taken out of the bracket. So that's what I'm left with. And that whole thing is divided by 4ab squared. Okay, once I have this, now I can start canceling things out. So I could cancel out 4 and 4, I could cancel out a and a, I can cancel out 1b in the numerator with 1b in the denominator. So when I simplify this, I'm going to get b minus a squared divided by 1b. Now, if you really want to, you can simplify this further, but that's absolutely fine, and that actually gets you a grade of merit in this case. But had you done only the numerator, if you only factorize the numerator, then you were looking at, actually not factorize, should I say simplified. So from just the numerator, if you simplify that, you're looking at an achieved grade. Cool, that's it for this question. We'll go to the next one. Alright guys, so in this question, we've got Sam and Jake live 8Ks from each other. Sam skates 10K in the same time as Jake rides his bike 15Ks. So they leave both home. If they both leave home at the same time, travel towards each other, how far from Jake's home will they meet? Now watch this, alright? I'm going to put this little dot here as Sam's house. And this little dot here is going to be Jake's house. So what that means is the distance from this point all the way to this point is 8 kilometers. So I could actually write my first equation as this. If I take Sam's house and add the distance to Jake's house, all right, would actually be 8Ks. I mean, that's the best way to put it. Now, if you think about it in, how do I say it? In like graph point, for example. So if I put this as S is equal to 0, then J is equal to 8. So the distance from here to here equals to 8. So I can actually say S plus J equals to 8. So that's the first equation. Now, the second thing it says is that Sam skateboards 10Ks in the time Jake rides his bike 15Ks. So I'm going to create a small little table here. So when Sam skateboards 10Ks, Jake rides 15. If Sam goes 20, I've doubled it, so he should go 30. So if I actually put Sam travels X, or S distance, what's Jake going to travel? Now I've got to look at the numbers here. So 10 to 15, I'm multiplying by 1.5. 20 to 30, I'm multiplying by 1.5. So in this case, I need to multiply by 1.5 as well, which means J is going to equal 1.5 multiplied by S. And so that becomes my second equation. So this right here becomes my second equation, where J equals to 1.5S. Now that I have these two equations, I can actually combine them together. So I've got Sam plus J, but because J is equal to 1.5S, I'm just going to substitute it in, equals 8. So what I end up with, 1.5 plus S is going to be 2.5S equals 8. So S is equal to 8 divided by 2.5. Now, I know this is an algebra and you're not allowed to use a calculator, so you got to try and work out what 8 divided by 2.5 is. Okay, just to show you a quick kind of way to do this is to do it like this. S is equal to 8 divided by 2.5. What you can do is you can actually go 8 divided by, instead of writing it as 2.5, you write it as 5 over 2. Now you need to multiply it by its reciprocal, so 8 times 2 over 5, and you get 16 over 5. Now this is a lot more easier to do with, without a calculator, because this can be written as 3.2. So S is equal to 3.2 Ks. But if you look at the question is actually asking you, how far from Jake's home will they meet? So this value that I just found, so this is Sam going along towards Jake. He's skateboarded 3.2 kilometers. So now I got to figure out what this distance is, because that's going to give me the answer for how far from Jake's home will they meet. And to figure that out, because Sam plus, where is it? Sam plus the distance Jake is 8. I can write this as 3.2. 3.2 plus J equals 8. And so J equals 8 minus 3.2. So J equals, so Jake's house, from Jake's house, it'll be 4.8 kilometers. And you guys can see that here, because 4.8 plus 3.2 would make it 8Ks. Cool. So excellence, I think this is, you need to get to the final part for excellence. Combined equation in one variable gets you a merit, so somewhere around here, and just one equation, one of these equations can get you an achieved. Okay, so that is question 1, and now we go to question 1F next. Okay, so in this question, we have Danny is trying to find a value for c so that x squared plus 6x plus c equals 0, blah, 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 has only one solution for x. So to get started on this is, first off, you need to understand that for you to have only one solution, especially with a quadratic, it needs to be a perfect square. So for example, take this for an example. If I have x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals to 0. This is just an example. When I actually solve this, or factorize this, I actually get x plus 5 squared equals to 0, which means x plus 5 equals to 0 and x equals to minus 5. So this gives me one solution. However, if I had done that same question with x squared plus 10x plus 24 equals 0, I'm going to get x plus 6, x plus 4 equals to 0. Therefore, x is equal to minus 6 and minus 4. This gives me two solutions. All right, so that's the first idea that I want you guys to get at in this question. Once you get that, so what you're trying to really look for is, you're trying to say x squared plus 6x plus c equals 0. You want to write it so that this is going to look like a perfect square. So x plus something perfect squared. So this is the part where you need to actually say that basically to figure out this number here, you need to actually say that that number is going to equal 6 divided by 2. So question mark then would equal 3, because this means you can actually write this equation as x squared, like x plus 3 squared, because x plus 3 squared is going to have a just one solution. Now if you expand x plus 3 squared, you get x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals to 0. So you can kind of make this connection that c has to equal 9 if you're going to have one solution. So, and I think that's what you need to say in the next part, is that c is equal to 9. So to get one solution, and that's just one part of it, guys, because look at the question again. It says find the value for c and the solution to the equation. So you have to go back to your equation, which is x plus 3 squared equals 0, and you're going to get x plus 3 equals to 0. Therefore x is equal to minus 3. So once you get here, you are looking at an excellence. But in terms of merit, it says it's actually doing one of them. So it's either finding value of c or finding the solution. And for achieved is trying to get to a perfect square, to show that, you know, if you show that this has to be a perfect square to get one solution, then that would be an achieved. All right, folks, that's all for question 1. Now we go to question 2. All right, so question 2, they've asked you to factorize this particular quadratic. Now you might have a completely different way of doing this than me, but the way I kind of do it is I basically go 3 times 6, which is 18, and I start looking for two numbers that's going to multiply to positive 18 and add up to minus 11. And looking at this combination, I know that this is going to be minus 9 and minus 2. Minus 9 plus negative 2 is going to be negative 11. So once I get that, what I do is I write down 3x squared, and instead of writing minus 11x, I'm going to write it up as minus 9x minus 2x plus 6. So once I do this part here, I start to factorize the first two terms and the last two terms. So I can write this as looking at the first two terms. So I'm looking at 3x squared and 9x, and I can write this as 3x brackets x minus 3. And then I look at the second part and go, okay, what is a common factor between minus 2 and 6? That's going to be minus 2. And if I take out minus 2, I'm going to get x minus 3. And once I have this, now I can see that x minus 3 and x minus 3 are common factors. So I can take out x minus 3 as a common factor and see what's remaining, which would be 3x minus 2. And this question here, folks, is an achieved question. Okay, off to the next question. So in this question, you've got a swing that's made by attaching two ends of the rope. Okay, I mean, there's just a whole lot of information here, guys. You're more than welcome to read it, pause and read it. But you kind of see the most important thing for you that you really need to look at is this part here, where H stands for height in meters, X stands for the meters from left-hand side. All right. So they're asking, what is the height above ground of the point on the rope where X is equal to 2? So all this question is really doing, or asking you to do, is just a substitution. So here's your equation. H is equal to 2x multiplied by x minus 1.5 plus 1. So you're replacing wherever x is with a 2. So you're going to get 2 multiplied, I'm talking about this 2 here, 2, and then you have 2 minus 1.5 plus 1. Simplifying this, 2 times 2, you're going to get 4. 2 minus 1.5 is 0.5 plus 1. 4 times 0.5 is 2, so you're going to get 2 plus 1, which is 3. And so your final answer is height is equal to 3. Well, we can just put it as 3 meters. There we go. And this gets you an achieved. So I know, it looks like some people get put off by the words, but just read through it and just find out what it is that they're asking you to do and work on it. All right, now we go to 2C. All right, with this question, we've got if y equals this particular x squared plus 3x minus 10, for what values of x will y be negative? Now, again, you might have learned this completely in a different way, but the way I do, I teach my students is work out what the x-intercepts are, work out the picture of the graph, and then work from there. And I'm going to show you guys how to do it. So the first step you want to do is put y equals to 0 and figure out what values for what values of x is y equal to 0. So we're going to get 0 equals x squared plus 3x minus 10. And factorizing this, we're looking for two numbers that multiply to minus 10 and add to positive 3. So in this case, it's going to be negative 2 and positive 5. So once we get these two values, we solve for it. So that means we've either got x minus 2 equals to 0. So x minus 2 equals to 0. Or we've got x plus 5 equals to 0. All right, so we've got two things that equal to 0. In our first situation, we've got x is equal to 2. And in the second equation, x is equal to minus 5. So at these 2 points, this graph cuts the x-axis. So if I just going to show you guys a real quick sketch here. I've got minus 5 somewhere here, and I've got 2 somewhere here, positive 2. Now, looking at the graph itself, this is a positive x squared graph. A positive x squared graph looks like this. So that means this graph has to go through minus 5. All right, I'm not worried about anything else. And it has to go through positive 2 again. Now, if you look at the y values is, well, that's the y-axis right there. It's all going to be positive above the x-axis, and it's going to be negative. The y values are going to be negative below the x-axis. So in terms of for what values of x will y be negative, it's basically going to be negative along everywhere from all the way from negative 5, leading just before positive 2. So we can write the answer as it'll be negative between negative 5 and positive 2. Now, really important that you don't actually put that equal sign less than or equal to, just because when it is negative 5, y is actually not negative, but it's equal to 0. So just leave your answer like this. So this gets you a merit. For achieved, I think factorize the equation, so somewhere here. And I think in the inequality, so if you put an equal sign in here, you could get achieved. So this is when you write like this, minus 5 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 2. So if you do that, you actually get an achieved as well. Okay, so be really careful about the equal sign, folks. Yeah, and that's it for this question here. All right, so we've got question 2D. Again, just looking at this question, it just seems like there's a lot of information here. But really just, if you're finding it hard to read through this, just go down to the equation and look at the question and see what it is that they're trying to ask you guys. Okay, so in this question, we have this particular equation here. All right, t equals 10 times 2n minus 1. Now, n is the number of weeks, or in week n, can be modeled. T is, it looks like it's the total. T is the number of minutes she walks per day. So all we're trying to figure out in this question is how many weeks, or we're trying to figure out what n is for help to reach a goal of walking 160 minutes a day. So t is equal to 160. So if we're going to write this equation out, we're going to have t equals 10 times 2n minus 1. So because t is equal to 160, we can write 160 equals 10 times 2n minus 1. Rearranging this, we're going to get 160 divided by 10, which equals 2n minus 1, or 16 equals 2n minus 1. Now 16 can be written as 2 to the power of 4, which means here we're going to have 2 to the power of 4 equals 2 to the power of n minus 1. Because the bases are equal, now that means this 4 and the n minus 1 should equal each other. So we're going to get 4 equals n minus 1, and we can just say n is equal to 5. So really, we can say that when it's after the 4th week, how many weeks will it take her to reach a goal of, so you can basically just say after 4 weeks. And that's basically it for this question, guys. So in terms of your grades, solving this, you're looking at a merit, simplifies equation or inequations. So simplify equations, I'm looking at possibly somewhere here for an achieved. All right, let's go to the next question. All right, guys, for this question, there's actually so many different ways of showing why Tane is actually wrong, and this solution has this equation only has one solution. Now I've actually created another video in this playlist. You should be able to see it. There are some worked answers just for excellence questions, and in that video I actually go through in full detail of the 3 other ways of doing this question. But today I'm just going to be looking at, just for time's sake, I'm only going to be looking at one way of doing this, and then showing you guys how you can get the answer for this. All right. So looking through this question, you're asked to basically check Tane's working and see if he's done everything right, and then try and figure out if he's not right, then what he did wrong, and then prove that it only has one valid solution. So looking through each of my steps in this case, I'm going to look at what Tane did. Obviously, the first thing he did was he cross multiplied. So you got 4 times x squared minus 1 and 3 times x squared plus 2x plus 1. So this line looks good. And then he decides to expand. 4x times x squared is 4x squared. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times 1 is 3. Again, everything looks good here. But have a look at the next line. All right, you've got 4x squared. When he brings the 3x squared to this side, now let's actually do this part here. I'm going to do from this part. So we has 4x squared minus 4 equals 3x squared plus 6x plus 3. When he rearranges this so he makes everything on the right hand side equal to 0, he's going to get 4x squared minus 4 minus 3x squared minus 6x minus 3 equals to 0. When you simplify this, you actually get x squared minus 6x minus 7 equals to 0. And I guess that's the first mistake Tane has actually made, because what he's supposed to have is minus 6x, but what he's written is plus 6x. So say that, that's the first mistake. Okay, so we're going to write down, right, Tane should have negative 6x and not positive 6x. So now we go about fixing his mistake. So we've got x squared minus 6x minus 7 equals to 0. So we're going to factorize this, and we're going to get x minus 7 and x plus 1 equals to 0. And when we factorize this, we're going to, when we're going to solve this, we get 2 values. We're going to get x equals to 7 and x equals to minus 1. But the problem is the teacher actually says that it only has one valid solution. So what we need to do is we need to substitute 7 and negative 1 back into the equation to see whether they work out or not. So if we look at the equation is x squared minus 1 divided by x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 3 over 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is on one side I'm going to do x equals to 7, and on the other one I'm going to do x equals negative 1. So when I substitute 7 into the equation, I've got 7 squared minus 1 divided by 7 squared plus 2 times 7 plus 1 should equal to 3 over 4. Now 7 squared is 49, so I've got 49 minus 1 divided by 49 plus 14 plus 1 equals 3 over 4. So in the numerator I have 48, in the denominator I have 64, which equals to 3 over 4. Now, if you're really good with numbers, you can pick up the pattern that 48 and 64 are actually common factors of 16, and they could be written as 16 times 3 and 16 times 4. And of course, you should be able to see that 16 and 16 cancel out. You've got 3 over 4 equals 3 over 4, which means 7, x equals 7 works. But when we put x equals to negative 1, let's see what happens. We've got negative 1 squared minus 1 divided by negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 plus 1 should equal to, theoretically, should equal to 3 over 4. But what we get here in the numerator we have 1 minus 1 because negative 1 squared is positive 1. In the denominator, negative 1 squared is positive 1. 2 times negative 1 is minus 2 plus 1 equals 3 over 4. Now when we simplify this, we actually get 0 over 0 is 3 over 4, and this doesn't work for us. So therefore, you cannot have x equals to negative 1. So your only solution in this case, you have to mention that that x equals to 7, and that's the only possible answer that you could actually get. So only valid solution. Okay, so excellence, that's what gets you to excellence. If you get up to the parts where you find 2 solutions, that gets you to a merit. For achieved is finding for identifying 6x. Now this particular question has like so many different ways of doing this, so even the marking of the grades is slightly different. And as I said, check out the other video that I posted in this playlist, and you'll see the different ways I've actually done this question. Alright guys, so here we got the next question here. This is question 2F. We got a group of people go to Fun Park. 38 people in the group. Cost for a student is $10. Cost for an adult is $12. And we've got total cost for the group is $420. So first thing that's really good to do is I'm going to put down S is equal to student. All right, and I'm going to put A is equal to adult. Now, I've got the number of people that are going to the park, to this fun park. That's actually 38. So if I say S is student, I really should have said S is equal to number of students, and A equals number of adults, which means I can say S plus the number of adults. Well, that is one ugly A. So the number of students plus the number of adults equals 38. Now it's also known that it's $10 for a student's ticket. So I could actually write this as, hang on, let's just go $10 for the student ticket. So that would be 10S plus, for the adults it's $12. So 12 times the number of adults, and altogether they pay $420. And there's my 2 equations set up. If you just form one of these equations, you're looking at an achieved. All right, an achieved grade there just for forming an equation. Pretty straightforward so far. Okay, so the second part I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at elimination. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that first equation and I'm going to eliminate the students. So I'm going to multiply this entire equation by 10, which means I'm going to get 10 times S is 10S, 10 times A is going to be 10A, and then 38 times 10 is 380. Now you might wonder why I didn't actually eliminate A. Well, it's because that's 12, and I really don't want to be wasting time doing 38 times 12. So look at which numbers you can eliminate real easily. All right. Once you do that, I'm going to take the first equation here and subtract it from this equation. So what you have is 10S minus 10S is 0. 12A minus 10A is going to be 2A. 420 minus 380 is going to be 40. And what I have is 2A equals 40 which means I can rearrange this as A equals 40 divided by 2, which is going to give me A is equal to 20. Now, really important you go and read the question, because in the question they're asking you to find out how many students were in the group. Now, I know that the number of students plus the number of adults equals, what was it? 38. 38. So I can write this as S plus 20 equals 38. So S equals 38 minus 20. So the number of students is 18. And in terms of grades, this gets you an excellence. Eliminating one variable gets you up to a merit. Cool, that's all of question 2 there, folks. Now we go to question 3. Alright guys, so question 3a, Jake thinks of a number, adds 5 and multiplies the result by 4. He gets an answer of 24 and it says find the number Jake was thinking of. So what I'm going to do is the first step is I'm going to put down x is equal to the unknown number. Alright, so once I do that, so first part is he thinks of a number which is x, adds 5 plus 5 and multiplies the result by 4. Now the key word is multiplies the result. So if you're saying he's actually multiplying the whole thing, we're just going to put a bracket around it and then multiply by 4. And now he gets an answer of 24. Okay, so this was the equation that we needed to set up, and now we need to solve this. So the first thing we can do is we can expand. We have 4 times x, which is going to be 4x, 4 times 5, which is 20, and then we've got 24. So we can rearrange this as 4x is equal to 24 minus 20, and we get 4x equals 4. Therefore, x is equal to 4 over 4, which is going to give you an answer of 1. Cool, and that is an achieved question. Okay, next question. We've got a rectangular garden, is n meters wide, its length is 2 meters longer than its width. Find the formula for the area of the garden in terms of n. So let's just do a quick sketch. We have a rectangular garden, its width is n meters, so this is going to be n. Its length is 2 meters longer than its width, so we're going to have n plus 2. Now they're asking you for the area of the garden in terms of n. So we can write this as area equals base times height, which is just n plus 2 multiplied by n. So really important that you actually put that bracket there, okay, because sometimes people kind of just put this without the brackets, and when you do without the brackets, this is what it looks like, n plus 2 times n, and that is actually not correct, because your final answer when you expand this, you're going to get n plus 2n, and then simplifying that is 3n, and that's completely not what we want here. But you can just leave your answer in this format here, n plus 2 times n. Doesn't ask for any kind of expanded form. And this will get you another easy achieved. Okay, let's go to the next question. So in this question, we've got 5 people on a camp of a stomach bug. The bug spreads at a rate. Again, this is one of those questions where, you know, there's a lot of words there, but really the important part that you want to look at is this part right here, where they've given you a nice little equation, 320 equals 5r cubed, and they're asking you to find what r is. Okay, so I'm going to write down the equation. So I've got 320 equals 5 times r cubed. So I divide both sides by 5. I'm going to get 320 divided by 5 equals r cubed. And I can write 320 divided by 5. If you're unsure of how to do divide by 5, what you can do is multiply the top number by 2 and divide it by 10. So you get 320 times 2 and the whole thing divided by 10. So you're going to get 640 divided by 10, which is 64. So that's what we've got. We've got 64 equals r cubed. Now, because r cubed equals to 64, you're looking for a number that's multiplied by itself three times to get to 64. And I mean, you can do guess and check if you really wanted this, because you can actually literally go from start. You can go 2 times 2 times 2. Well, that's 8. I'm not looking for that. 3 times 3 times 3. That's 27. Not looking for that. 4 times 4 times 4. And that looks like 64. So we can actually write this as r cubed is equal to 4 to the power of 3. And therefore we can say r is equal to 4. And if you are getting r equals to 4, that is getting you a merit. And equation simplified, and I think it's probably looking at here for an achieved. All right, let's go to the next question. Okay, so with this question, we got two kids, Sarah and Miri, are studying for their NCEA exams. Sarah is claiming that she does more study than Miri. And Miri says she does 3 hours of study on each of the 4 days during the week. So we got 3 hours study on each of the 4 days. So Miri actually studies for 12 hours. All right, so that's our first comment that we're going to write here. So Miri studies for 12 hours. Now, this fourth point, I'm looking at Sarah. Sarah says she studies for 2/3 of that time during the week and at least a further 2 hours on the weekend. So if you look at Sarah's studying habits, so Sarah studies 2/3 of that time, so 2/3 of 12 hours and at least a further 2 hours. So that means she could be studying 2 hours, 3 hours, or or more. It just keeps going. So the way we can write this is we can actually write this as if we work out 2/3 of 12, that's going to be 8 hours. All right. So the minimum she's actually Sarah is studying, the minimum is 8 hours in the week and then 2 hours in the weekend. So that's the minimum. But she could study, of course, 3 hours or 4 hours and so on. Now, we can write this as, so we've got Sarah has to, like the minimum she's studying, the 8 hours plus the 2 hours is 10 hours. So Sarah studies minimum of 10 hours. And this statement says that she will study 10, 11, 12 or more. All right. So now we're trying to figure out, is Sarah's claim always correct, and explain our solution. So here's the thing. Miri, she studies for 12 hours. All right. So she studies for 12 hours. Now, if Sarah studies for 2 hours in the weekend, I'm just going to make a little table so you guys can see what happens. So if she studies 2 hours in the weekend, then total studying she's done, right, in the week, this is week, Sarah does 2/3 of 12, which is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. If she studies 3, then it becomes 11. If she studies 4, it becomes 12. She studies 5 hours in the weekend, then she goes to 13. So really, you can see 3 situations happening here. The first thing is Sarah's claim. I think we'll go back to Sarah's claim. This is Sarah claims. Sarah claims she does more study than Miri. All right. But look at this. For that to really happen, she needs to be studying 5 hours in the weekend. Because if she studies 5 hours in the weekend, then her total studying hours will go to 13. If she does 4 hours in the weekend of study, she actually does the same amount of studying as Miri, because Miri is studying 12 hours and now Sarah's also studying 12 hours. But if Sarah does less than 4 hours, so if she studies for less than 4 hours in the weekend, that's the red box here we're looking at, she's actually not doing more study than Miri. She's actually doing less. So what we have here is we have 3 situations that can potentially happen. And what you need to do is basically write down the 3 situations and explain how this works. So if Sarah studies more than 4 hours, more than 4 hours, so that's like 4.1 hours or whatever, more than 4 hours, she's correct. So her claim is correct. If Sarah studies exactly 4 hours, then they study the same time. Study the same time. But if Sarah studies less than 4 hours, she's wrong. She's incorrect. And also for that middle one, she's also incorrect because she's not actually doing more study, she's actually doing the same study, which means Sarah is incorrect in that middle situation as well. So yeah, that's what we needed to do for this particular question, guys. In terms of the grades, you need one inequality and all of those 3 statements there. All right, that's what you need for an excellence. For a merit, there's a couple of combinations. You could get one inequality and one of these statements. All right, or you could get merit with 2 statements from here. So one from more than 4 hours and one probably from the less. For achieved, you could get just for one of the statements. So one statement will get you an achieved or one inequality. So yeah, that's how you work on this question. Okay, we'll go to the next one. All right, guys, so in this question, we got Sammy and Marius. They earn pocket money by working in a garden. Marius earns $14 an hour. Sammy earns $4 more. Marius works twice as long as Sammy, and together they earn a total of $138. So we're trying to figure out how much does Sammy earn. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put down a little table here for the number of hours Marius works and Sammy works. So if it says Marius works twice as long as Sammy, so if Sammy works 1 hour, then Marius works 2. Sammy works 2 hours, then Marius works 4. And if I keep going, if Sammy works S number of hours, then Marius works 2 times S. So basically, that gives me my first equation here, where it says M equals to 2S. Now, if Marius earns $14 an hour, that's nicely done there. Sammy earns $4 an hour more than Marius. So Sammy actually earns $18 an hour. And together they earn a total of 138. So let me put this, I can put up as M is hours Marius worked. Number of hours Marius worked. And S is number of hours Sammy worked. Maybe I should use a different color. There we go. Let's try this one here. So if that's the case, now we've got our equation. Marius earns $14. So that could be 14 times M, which is the hours Marius worked, plus $18 for Sammy for every hour she or he worked. All that is equal to $138. Okay, so now we have that, we do know that M is equal to 2S, so we can actually replace, substitute M in this case. So because we're going to get M is equal to 2S, so I've just substituted that, plus 18S equals 138. So 14 times 2S is 28S, plus 18S equals 138. And this could be written as, let me just go down here, 46s equals 138, which means s is equal to 138 divided by 46. Now, I know that in this exam paper you're not allowed to use a calculator, so you got to just look at these numbers and just kind of have a play around with it. Right? Most of the time they're not going to give you complicated numbers to actually work out. So in this, just think about this, all right? When you have 6 times table, what number you got to multiply by 6 to get 8 at the end as the last digit? Because if I do 6 times 1, that's 6. 6 times 2 is 12, so the last digit is a 2. If I do 6 times 3, that's 18, and the last digit is an 8. So it's a good guess that you look at these two numbers here. 138, you've got 8 as the last digit here, and you've got 6 here as the last digit. So it's a very good chance it could be a 3. So just try it out. 46 times 3. And you have 40 times 3 plus 6 times 3. 40 times 3 is 120. 6 times 3 is 18. 138. And so now S is equal to 3. Okay? But you're not done with the question, because have a look at what the question's asking. How much does Sammy earn? You've just worked out Sammy works for 3 hours. So to work out the money, you've got to go 18 times 3, which is equal to $54. So you say Sammy earns $54. Cool. That's it for this question. So in terms of grades, excellence, problem solved, and then relationship formed in one variable. So you're probably looking at a merit somewhere here, or for achieved, it could be just one of this equation here, or possibly this one here, because that is actually one of these equations. Cool, that's it for this question, and now we go to the last question in 3F. Alright guys, so in this question we've got volume of a cylinder is given by this particular equation, and we have volume of a cone which is given by this equation. Now it says the cylinder has the same radius as the base of the cone. So if I look at this in a diagram, I have a cylinder here that has the same radius as the cone. That's a terrible cone. Let me try that again. There we go. That's better. So it has the same radius as the cone. If the volume of the cylinder is twice that of the cone, give an expression for the ratio. So what they're saying is volume of cylinder equals 2 times volume of the cone. Okay, and we want to find the ratio of the height of the cylinder to the height of the cone. Now, just for this particular question, guys, I'm gonna write down volume of cylinder as volume Y, and volume of cone, I'm just gonna put it as volume, I don't know, maybe N. Just use a different letter. All right. So volume of the cylinder is pi r squared h, which is shown here. So I'm going to write that as pi r squared h, and I'm going to put down cylinder. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to use y. There you go. The height of the cylinder equals 2 times volume of the cone, which is pi over 3 r squared h of cone. Okay, so looking at it from here, I can start removing a few things. I can't start cancelling things out because I've got pi on both sides, so they cancel out. I've got r squared on both sides, they cancel out. So what I have is the height of the cylinder equals 2/3 of the height of the cone. So from here I can basically say that ratio of the height of the cylinder to the height of the cone is 2/3. And that's basically it, folks. So you're looking at excellence for this question. All right, if you make a little mistake in your simplification somewhere here, you're probably looking at a merit, a relationship formed for the volumes. I think that's probably looking at here without actually doing any cancellations. That's your achieved there. Okay, that's it for this question, guys. 3F. That's basically the whole paper. Thank you for watching. Good luck for your exams, and I'll try and see if I can make another video before MCAT comes through. But yeah, just a bit of a word of advice is that, with all those word questions, try and at least get the equations written, and yeah, just work through the answers. Cool. Once again, thank you for watching, and all the best.